What is the best practice amp for beginners? Today, that's the topic, because I don't think that the best practice amp for a beginner is necessarily the same as the best one for someone more seasoned. Hello and welcome to another video with me, Elmo. It's good to have you along. This is actually a video that I've already done over on my lesson channel. So I'm re-editing this for this channel because I think that it might be of interest to the viewers of this channel as well. So, the best practice amp for beginners, few suggestions, some things to think about when buying your first practice amp. Let's get going. The first obvious thing to point out here is that you can practice without an amp. This is audible. You can hear it. It doesn't sound as cool as playing Peppa Pig through a Marshall, like I just did in the beginning. I don't know if Peppa Pig sounds cool. But you can get by with just the electric guitar. It might not be as fun, but still. So the first thing I would consider is what type of amp do you want? That will be dictated by what kind of music you play. There are different types of amplifiers. There are solid-state amps, modeling amps, and valve amps, or tube amps if you live in America. They come in different sizes and shapes and all that, but the one that you want is some kind of combo amp. Now behind me you have a Marshall. This thing, that's a head, and this is a cab. A combo is like this. This Roland that I have over here, because there you have both the amp and the speaker in the same enclosure. Makes everything a lot more easy. So that's number one. You probably want a combo. You don't want a huge amount of watts. If it's a solid state amp, it doesn't really matter if it's big or small. You can run it at very low volume and it'll still sound pretty much like it does when you crank it. Modeling amps, same thing. If you have a valve amp, then and you want to crank it for a certain type of sound, that might be a problem. So make sure that it has, let's say it's 15 watts, make sure that it has a 1 watt mode or something like that, so you can flip down the power. Because otherwise, especially if you live in an apartment, a flat, you won't be able to crank it without, well, the neighbors sending the police for a chat. Valve amps are more expensive generally. Some people think that they're a bit finicky and can be moody and all that and be troublesome. I've never had any trouble with my valve amps, and I've had a bunch of them. My first real practice amp was a Fender Champ. 12 watts, made in Mexico. Brilliant thing. Yeah. If you're into a more kind of blues, rock and roll thing, a simple valve amp will do the trick. If you want metal stuff, maybe a modeling amp of some sort where you can get more high gain stuff. This is assuming that you don't buy any pedals, and I will assume that you will not be buying any pedals at the moment. Regardless, I don't think you should put too much effort into this first purchase of an amp, because you will not sound like your heroes regardless. Just make sure that it doesn't sound like a hill of dog excrement. I don't know what that sounds like. But anyway, sound is all subjective as well. So if someone says that you shouldn't get that amp, but you like that amp, get that amp. I mean, who am I to say what you should like? So that was rather long number one, and maybe it was number 1 and 2. Yeah, so number 3, cost. How much are you willing to spend on a practice amp? I would suggest that you don't spend a lot of money on it. Not because of the normal reason, which is where people say you shouldn't invest a lot of money in your first guitar and amp because there is a good chance that you will quit and then you will make a loss. I think that is setting yourself up for failure. What I think is that you should get a relatively affordable amp, because there are some very good affordable amps out there. And also because chances are that your tastes will change as time goes on, and in that sense it will be kind of easier for you to get another amp later on. And maybe even keep the really cheap amp that you've gotten as your first amp. But again, if you want something more expensive and you have the money, go crazy. Alright, so like I said in the beginning, this video is originally from my lesson channel. If you're interested in lesson content, there's a link to that channel in the description. I have a beginner lesson course going, I have intermediate lessons and all sorts of general lessons as well. So check that out if that's something you're interested in. Number 4, I think this is a big one, and I think it's very underrated. You want it to be simple. If you have to start using an app and scrolling through menus and doing all that fiddly stuff, that's time spent away from your actual practice. An ideal thing, really, in a lot of ways, is just a one-channel amp, where you have a few knobs and that's it. Depends on the style of music again. If you play blues, it can be just as simple as this amp. It has 2 inputs, but I'm just using the one. Something that sounds like this. I don't mean it has to be a big old Marshall. That sounds like a big old Marshall, but I mean in terms of it doesn't have to have a lot of gain, it doesn't have to have a lot of options, you don't need anything really. You might want a bit of reverb, that's really kind of it. Or a delay. Now, one thing you should do is look at reviews, but you need to be aware of reviews. Why? Well, because a lot of reviews are trying to sell you things. And I'll just go out on a limb here and say, when you Google best guitar practice amps or something like that, you will see articles by Guitar World and Music Radar and stuff like that, where they give a huge variety of all sorts of different practice amp options, and I think some of those are absolute rubbish. The thing that they're trying to do is just sell stuff via affiliate links. I do that as well on my main channel. I have an affiliate link and I sometimes have them in the description of these videos as well. But and take anything I say with a pinch of salt as well. The same goes on YouTube. Are they trying to sell the amps that they're reviewing or the amp that they're reviewing? If they have a link for it and they say it's brilliant, take it with a pinch of salt. It might be that they're being perfectly honest. It might be the bee's knees and all that. Just be aware of that potential issue. Okay, so time has come for me to reveal what I think are would be my 3 suggestions. Number 1, if you want a valve amp, then get a Harley Benton Tube 5, or if you want to, a Tube 15. The Tube 5 is dead simple, brilliant amp, dirt cheap. The 15, a bit more complicated, not terribly complicated. You can get it down to 1 watt and really cheap as well. I mean, solid state amplifier cheap. If you live in the US, the same amp goes by the name of, what's it called? Stage Right, sold by Monoprice. I forget now, but I think the Tube 15 is like 250 euros here in Europe, and the Tube 5 is like 150 euros. That's definitely not a lot. Oh, before you go and buy any of these, I have one last tip before we end. But number 2, if you want to go really small, something that's really portable, I would go for a Boss Katana Mini. Not the Mini X, the Mini. It's cheaper and I actually think it sounds better. Really simple, you have clean crunch and brown, I think it was, and it has a delay. And that's basically it. If you want something even cheaper and a bit more portable still, there's the Black Star Fly, which is also a brilliant option. And then we get to my kind of go-to suggestion. And at the same time, I'm going to tell you how you can save some money on these. Buy them second-hand. Buying them second-hand means that you save a lot of money, and with this last amp, or potentially at least, with this last amp, it's the only way you can get it, because it's not in production anymore. It's the Roland Microcube. I have one back there. They have the original version, that one is the original, and then there's the GX version. I like the original one more because the classic stack, in my opinion, was better. But even any of the other Roland cubes, that's the 80, that's a bit too big. But even if you manage to find another Roland cube, that's a good alternative. Nowadays, they do still make the Roland Cube 10 GX, which is a perfectly fine alternative. The original Microcube and the GX Microcube, it was just a rotary switch to select the amp type that it's modeling, so it's a modeling amp. Then it had a gain control, then it had a tone control, and really, really dead simple stuff. You won't have anything to fiddle with, which means you will play more. Is it the best sounding amp out there? No, probably not. Although some people think it is. And I happen to be in the camp where I think it is still one of the best sounding amps out there. It's old stuff. And you can get them secondhand here in Finland for like 60 euros. I think I've seen them go for 50 euros even. I don't know what they go for where you live, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty much cheaper than almost anything else. If you want to check out these amps and how they sound, I have a video on my main channel with the 10 best practice amps in the world, and they all feature in that video. Before you check that video out, I would like to give you a word of warning regarding that video. All of the amps in that video would be great practice amps, even for a beginner, but some of them do have some menus and apps and hassles. So that's the reason why I haven't recommended a Spark amp in this video, because that comes with an app, and even though it's set and forget, you can get lost for days just going through different amp models and not really practicing. And what you need to be doing really is not fiddling with apps. You need to be practicing your instrument, because it's hard enough as it is. And practicing the correct way will make sure that you progress at the fastest kind of pace that you can. So I'll link that video in the description and pin that in the comments. If you've already seen that video, but you want to know how to practice properly, there's a video here, which is not from the beginner series. It's applicable to anyone. Other than that, I do hope you consider supporting the channel via the link in the description. But above all, I hope you had some use of this. Take care. See you. Goodbye.